modes and what the health impact of these modes are likely to be in the upcoming years in the complete absence of any information. Well, we're probably stuck with it in a certain sense by some type of analogy or some type of estimate. Okay? Now, of course, the problem that we deal with here is that if we read, these are unprecedented events, these are game-changing events, these are things that are earth-shattering. Well, one of the principal advantages of being an old guy is you discover that something that's never happened before probably has happened before. And something that's unprecedented probably has a precedent. Okay? So these unprecedented changes in our transportation system, we can go back, about 25 years and say, oh, what revolution did we have in the 1980s and 1990s? Well, here, we're dealing with the cellular telephone, personal computer, the advent of the internet, a substantial change in automobile technology. Airbags, electronic fuel injection, stability traction control were all added in the 1880s and 90s. In the 1980s, the Staggers Act deregulated the rail industry. And similar deregulation in the trucking industry led to a complete change in the way freight was moved in the United States, as did in the 1970s, but really clearly in the 1980s and 90s, the advent of overnight delivery, FedEx and UPS Air, substantially changed when we sent in research proposals. I'm sorry. Okay? But that was a revolution, and we saw how that changed our transportation system. Well, but in the 1950s and 60s, we had a revolution. We had the aspect of the interstate highway system, the expansion of automobile ownership, suburbanization in the 1950s, the containerization of freight, the Ideal X in 1956, the first container ship moving. You had the invention of the transistor, which changed all the control systems. Then, of course, you had the advent of television and direct and jet aircraft, were all changes to our transportation system that occurred in that period. Okay, so we have two previous examples, except that we go back in the 20s and 30s, you had another three revolutions or more, right? You had the advent of synthetic rubber, which allowed solid rubber tires to be changed to pneumatic tires. You had the Ford Model A and Model T, which led to a great deal of change. You had the advent of the residential telephone, home and rural electrification, the advent of the Panama Canal, and of course commercial air service, airmail, became prevalent. Well, fortunately, that's never happened before then. But in the 1870s and 1890s, you had the Transcontinental Railroad becoming common. You had the opening of the Suez Canal. You had the development of ocean liners, which made movement across oceans feasible. You had the development of the internal combustion engine and its associated technology with petroleum refining. So we've had revolutions before. How well did we do in predicting the impact of these previous revolutions? Not very well. Okay? But if we take our lessons, there's almost certainly two things that always happen. We significantly overestimate what the near-term changes are going to be. The system has a lot of inertia. Okay? Things don't change as quick as you think. It's always 5 years away, except never happened, right? But on the other hand, when we estimate changes over the longer term, 15 or 20-year periods, we almost always greatly underestimate what the impacts are. And the reason is the primary change is not what we do, but really in how we do it. And secondarily, it's important to remember that the influence of transportation is not really just on the movements of goods and people. It's essentially the way we organize our society. Transportation has been an important issue. If we look at the history of cities, the size of cities is roughly limited to how fast you can travel in 2 hours. So as we move from walking to bicycles to wagon wagons, all the way up to cars. Cities have gotten larger simply because of the increased mobility that provides. We essentially have time budgets instead of other budgets. And so really the influence of these things is more likely to be felt not in terms of how we move on existing roads, but how it changes the way we live and work and play because of the availability of these other modes. Now I wanted to spend the last couple of minutes here talking a few questions here. They're just yes or no's, true or falses, and I want to get everybody with a show of hands about these futures, okay? So the first question is, for the last 60 years, the best-selling vehicle in the United States has been a pickup truck. 5 years from now, 2024 model, is the best-selling American 2024 vehicle a pickup truck or not? Anybody think yes?
American produced vehicle?
No. Best-selling vehicle in the United States, period. How many of you think it's going to be a pickup truck in 2024? Okay. How many of you don't think it's going to be a pickup truck? Okay. Okay. The last time the best-selling vehicle in the United States was not a pickup truck was 1947. Okay. So you're thinking it's going to be a rapid change in the next 5 years. Okay. Okay. Let me ask the next question. 10 years from now, we've got 3 revolutions going on. Who's going to be winning? 10 years from now, will more vehicles on the road be capable of driverless operation or be fully electric? How many of you think driverless vehicles will outnumber fully electric vehicles 10 years from now? Okay. How many of you think electric vehicles will outnumber driverless vehicles? Okay. So you're betting on Georgia Power. All right. All right, 15 years now, 2033, will your birthday present be delivered by a human driver or a drone? How many of you think a human driver will deliver? How many of you think a drone will deliver? Okay. You guys aren't holding out the big car, right? All right. Okay. All right. Now, most of you are young people. Will your youngest child obtain a driver's license to manually drive a vehicle? How many of you think they will? How many of you think they won't? So all of you believe that this autonomous stuff isn't really going to happen, right? Okay? And lastly, this is back to the Sperling question. In 2043, 25 years from now, are there more or less vehicles operating for us? How many of you think more vehicles will be operating? How many of you think less? All right, so none of you are buying, not too many of you are buying the Sperling argument right now, but sheer mobility in their mind. All right, I'm going to save time for a couple of questions, but I wanted to leave you with one more thing about the philosophy associated with it. All of you have heard of Murphy's Law, right? In any field of science, putting endeavor, anything can go wrong, will go wrong. I think in terms of your studies here, a far more important is Dooley's aphorism. Does anybody know what Dooley's aphorism is? Written by a man who was Skinner Finley Dunn. This was essentially the Jon Stewart of his generation. He wrote the Chicago Tribune. But it was kind of dangerous to have bad ideas, so he invented a local bartender down the street. He would say he walked down and talked to Mr. Dooley, who spoke with a long Irish brogue, and he would tell what it really was about. And one of the many books that Defendant Peter Gunn wrote based on his columns was Mr. Dooley on Peace and War. Really talking about what was happening in 1898 in the Spanish-American War. Okay? And he wrote his comment now, which has become known as Dooley's aphorism. It wasn't the things we didn't know that hurt us. It was the things we knew for sure that turned out to be wrong. Okay? okay? As you get older, that effort is making more and more sense, all right? So with that, I'll take any questions, one or two. We need to get out of here in about 5 minutes, so any questions? Thank you very much for listening to my rambling,